My name is Nadilia Captra. I'll be presenting a speech on whether incarceration rate should be a to-go punishment in the United States. Incarceration is the state of being confined in prison. The United States is one of the industrialized nations in the world with the highest rate of incarceration. The United States has the largest prison population in the world and the second highest per capita incarceration rate. In 2013, the United States, there were 698 people incarcerated per 100,000 populations. According to the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics, 2,220,300 adults were incarcerated in the U.S. federal and state prison and county jails in 2013, about 0.91% of adults in the U.S. resident populations. Men make up 90% of prison and local jail population and half the rate for women. Incarceration rates are highest for those in their 20s and early 30s, and these men are overwhelmingly young. The average state prisoner has a 10th grade education and about 70% have not completed high school education. Incarceration rates are significantly higher for Black and Latinos than for white. In 2010, Black men were incarcerated at the rate of 3.074 per 100,000 residents. Latinos were incarcerated at 1.258 per 100,000 residents, and white men were incarcerated at the rate of 459 per 100,000 residents. Furthermore, the two most frequently cited justifications for punishment are retribution and reductivism. Reductivism justifies punishment on the ground that it is deserved by the offender. Reductivism arguments can be supported by the form of moral reasoning known as utilitarianism. This is the general moral theory first systematically expounded by Jeremy Bentham, which says that moral actions are those that produce the greatest happiness of the great number of people. If punishment does indeed reduce the future incidence of crime, then the pain and unhappiness caused to the offender may be outweighed by the unpleasantness to other people in the future which is prevented, thus making punishment morally right from a utilitarian point of view. Retribution, on the other hand, justifies punishment on the ground that it helps to reduce the incidence of crime. The retributivist principle states that wrongdoers should be punished because they deserve it. It is in some ways the complete antithesis of reductivism. Where reductivism is forward-looking, retributivism looks backward in time to the offense. It is a fact that the offender has committed a wrongful act which deserves punishment, not the future consequences of the punishment that is important to the retributivist. Retributivism claims that it's in some way morally right to return evil for evil, that two wrongs can somehow make a right. Moreover, mass incarceration began in 1970 and has steadily increased since. Black people are a minority of Americans but make up fully half of the imprisoned population, and most of those were convicted of non-violent crimes. Imprisonment was their gains made in the 1960s. It was no longer legal to keep Black people from living where they wanted, getting jobs they were qualified to get, or preventing them from going to the polls. The drive to mass incarceration has taken it back to people enormously. A newly published book titled Invisible Men: Mass Incarceration and the Myth of Black Progress gives the facts and figures behind the crime committed against Black people. Prisoners are disappeared persons who are removed from census figures, who lose their voting rights, and who, upon gaining their freedom, are banned from entire categories of employment. According to the author Becky Petty of the book Invisible Men, statistics about black people cannot be trusted because incarcerated men are not included in the census. In addition, high rates of incarceration among black people and low education men have traced to similar sources. Just as the social strain of economic disadvantage may push the poor into crime, those with little schooling also experience frustration at blocked opportunities. While a good proxy for economic status, school failure also contributes directly to delinquency. Few studies focus on education, but class bias is in criminal sentencing is suggested by findings that more educated federal defendants receive relatively short sentences in general and are less likely to be incarcerated for drug crimes. Thus, imprisonment may be more common among low-educated men because they are the focus of the social control effects of criminal justice authorities. Nevertheless, the U.S. should not continue to utilize incarceration as a to-go form of punishment. The effectiveness of restorative justice compared to punitive justice is simply amazing, but that really should not be a shock to us. Why shouldn't restoring a life work better than simply subjecting it to punishment? The American approach to crime needs some reframing. Because the old way simply doesn't work. A punitive focused approach results in overpopulated prisons filled to the brim, but with some folks who justly should be there and some folks who probably should not. All, however, are forced to acclimate to violent prison life that simply turns them into hardened criminals, even if they face so many barriers to reintegration into the society that the violent survival mechanisms the prison system taught them quickly become one of their only tools to move forward in life. To conclude, we must become people who learn to see a life restored instead of a life destroyed, and we must become willing to do whatever it takes to make the former happen, while we can begin to influence culture in such a way that we reform our penal system to become something that sees justice as a life restored instead of punishment given. Thanks for listening.